Jesus. Oh, God. I just woke up, but it doesn't matter. Because today is going to be a different type of video. We're going to be reacting to something, but it's not a try not to laugh. Or Spooky Scary Friday. Nah, that's what I was going to do, but I'm like, nah. So today we're going to be reacting to a crime type of video. It's called Korea's Most Hated Man Released from Jail. And I would play the full video, but it's an hour and 50. I'm not watching the whole hour. So I'm gonna watch the first half of it, like I'll say about like 20 minutes, do my reactions on it, and then yeah. This is the first time I reacted to a crime scene type of video. I really don't watch crime shows like that. I just never really have time. But this will be interesting. This was sent to me by my friend, so if she sees this video, then that's for you. So let's get to it.
Ving bada boo.
Let's get it.
December 16th, 2021. It's 9 p.m. in Ansan City, just outside of Seoul, South Korea. Mr. C receives a knock on his door. He looks through the little peephole. It's a uniformed police officer. He looks at his wife and says, "It's the police."
What you doing?
Now, to most couples, this would have been very alarming to have the police show up unannounced at your house at 9 p.m. on a Thursday night. Like, what is going on?
Like, I ain't do
But
nothing.
Mr. C was kind of in a strange situation. Someone tried to kill him earlier that year. So the officer was likely here to give Mr. C an update on the stalker that tried to kill him just 10 months ago. And, you know, the whole thing was really bizarre. A 20-year-old man, a complete and utter stranger to Mr. C. Like, they had no degrees of connection. They didn't have mutual friends, nothing. This man stalked Mr. C for 3 months, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Wow,
February of
that's
2021, just 10 months ago from that date, he had slipped a knife into his pocket, buried his face into a giant puffer jacket, and tried to get into Mr. C's apartment building. He was caught with the knife in his pocket before he could even get to Mr. C, but the whole thing was just so unsettling. He was dragged away by the police and he was screaming about how, "I must kill him, I must kill Mr. C, or else life is not worth living." And just to clarify,
Okay,
again,
you're
this
going
is not
too
a
far
man
with
that
that.
Mr. C even knows. Anyway, this man was sentenced to 6 months in prison. And it was just very terrifying for Mr. C to realize that there were people out there these days that have zero morals, zero concept of consequences. But at least Mr. C had the police, you know? They'd been very understanding about the whole incident. They were constantly making sure to just check up on Mr. C, trying to
yeah.
make him feel as safe as possible, even stationing police guards outside of the building. Mr. C and his wife ushered in the police officer. They're like, "It's 43 degrees. Come in, it's cold, it's cold." Now, it's unclear if Mr. C recognized the officer. And it's unclear at what point Mr. C realized this police officer standing in his apartment is not a real police
It's
officer.
soccer, ain't it?
He was the 20-year-old man that tried to kill him 10 months ago. He had
I
been
don't know.
released from prison 4 months ago, and he was back to finish the job. The fake police officer grabs a hammer near the door and smashes it onto Mr. C's head. Mr. C's wife is screaming. She's running out the door while the two men get into a struggle. They're trying to overpower each other. Mr. C's wife is screaming, "There's a lunatic trying to murder my husband!" The real police officers arrive in record time. They arrest the
good.
masked man, and Mr. C was rushed to the local hospital. The 20-year-old man did not have the best aim, so Mr. C ended up being completely fine, just minor
Well, that's
injuries,
good.
but he was very badly shaken up. And the police, they sit the 20-year-old guy down, and the attempted killer, they sit him down and they say, "What is your problem? You don't even personally know this guy. Like, why are you ruining your life right now? You're about to get sentenced for attempted murder. Do you understand that?" The guy with the hammer just bluntly responded, "I'm doing this for justice." Justice? Can you really
What?
argue that justice is a 20?
Unless something happened a long time ago between y'all two, which clearly there wasn't, how was it justice? You're the one stalking the dude. Y'all don't know each other, no mutual friends, nothing. Y'all just complete strangers, complete nobodies. That's justice? Really? What type of... Okay, maybe I just woke up and maybe I missed something, but like, there's just no way has just justice based on that. What the hell are you talking? Okay.
That justice is a 20-year-old man impersonating a police officer, breaking into a 70-year-old man's house and beating him on the head with a hammer. That's a senior citizen. What's crazy is everyone in South Korea, all the netizens, all the civilians, they agreed. This, in fact, was justice. Even the police couldn't help but agree.
What?
Maybe this is the way it's supposed to be.
What type of world are we living in where everybody saw what happened? Everybody saw the 20-year-old go to the dude's house, nearly killed the man, and y'all agree that that was justice? When they don't know each other, when they have no beef, well, no beef between each other, and that's just, yeah. Do this in America. You're getting death sentence for sure. Like, you're going to a senior citizen's house. You don't even know why you're doing this. Now, you might know, but nobody knows why you're really doing this, and that's justice. Yeah, okay. Stupid.
8-year-old girl named Nayoung. This is the case of Cho Do-sun, also known in Korea as the murderer of souls. He is also the most hated man in the nation. We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support RAIN, which is the nation's largest anti-virus. That being said, let's get into it. When the president comes to town, it's kind of a huge coordinated effort to keep the president safe. That's what this felt like. There's workers on ladders installing more CCTV cameras up on the poles. Street light bulbs were being taken out and replaced with brighter bulbs to illuminate the alleyways at night, to make it brighter. Facial recognition cameras were being installed. I mean, those are expensive. Alleyway alarms were being installed. So if you're walking down the alleyway and you feel like, ooh, this doesn't feel right, something sinister is about to happen, what do? You run to the pole, press the big red button, police will be dispatched. There were countless bright yellow vest-wearing police officers just roaming around the city of Ansan, surveilling the people, civilians, poking their head into businesses, making sure everything is in order. The government actually spent money hiring martial arts professionals to train the police department better. The control room for all of the CCTV cameras in Ansan City, it looked like a top-secret military command center. Over $1 million was spent in like the span of a month or two, revamping the streetlights, installing more cameras, even just hiring more manpower in the police force. All of that was taxpayer money. I mean, it's very clear to everyone. Someone very important is coming to town. Ansan City government even hired 12 security guards, formerly special forces soldiers, and martial arts specialists to just patrol the area around this man's house. 24-hour-a-day security. They would even ask anyone that's walking down that street within like a block of this man's house for their ID, just to make sure that they're not someone weird. I mean, you can't tell me that's not the president. Even the residents of Ansan are prepping. They're hanging up lights on their balconies. Motion sensor lights. They're installing cameras. Some of them gathered together and held up these massive banners in preparation for the man's arrival. Now, maybe if you don't read Korean, they could be mistaken for welcome signs.
Probably.
But they're not. They read, criminal rapist Cho Do-sun, leave our city. Castrate him. Cho Do-sun to hell. Only a death sentence will fit a monster like him. Other residents, they locked arms, they hooked their elbows with each other, and they laid down on the streets where the cars were passing to block traffic. They did not want this man here. Other locals, they went to the grocery store and they bought eggs and flour, baking flour. There was an overnight rally outside the prison. About 100 individuals were armed and ready with fresh cartons of eggs, and they were screaming, "Why are you protecting the rights of a convict? He needs to die." December 12th, 2020, at 6:45 a.m., it was time. The most well-protected man in South Korea was being released. The prison gates opened. A swarm of police officers rushed out with a man in the center. It was a gray-haired Cho Do-sun. Cho had been prepping for this moment too. Just like the city, just like the residents, for the past 12 years, he had been preparing. He was obsessed with working out. He could do 1,000 push-ups in a single hour. He was 68 years old on the day of his release, but his physique, his muscle mass was more on par with a 30-year-old.
1,000 push-ups?
In a single hour.
There's no way.
When his inmates would ask him, why are you working out so hard? He said that he was preparing for this very exact day, the day that he's going to be released. Because what if someone tries to attack him? People were so violent and senseless these days. He was released wearing a ball cap, white face mask, and he was wearing a puffer jacket. He refused to answer any of the civilians or the reporters' questions. He refused to apologize. He just bowed twice silently in front of all the cameras that were shoved in his face. But there was a very interesting detail that is so telling about this whole situation. It isn't the fact that so many police officers were surrounding him. It's not the fact that some of the officers even took an egg to their back because they're somewhat shielding Cho from all of this. It is the fact that in Cho's right hand was a tiny, small tangerine. It's such a small, insignificant fruit. But it just feels so sinister. It feels so nonchalant. Like he just grabbed a piece of fruit on his way out to run errands. Could he really even be thinking about food right now? Later, Cho's probation officer would state that Cho was surprised to see all the people that were greeting him when he was released. He said, I guess it kind of makes sense, though. I committed a crime that would anger both gods and human beings. The day of that crime was December 11th, 2008. So 12 years prior. 8:30 a.m. It's below freezing temperatures in South Korea, 30 degrees Fahrenheit or -1 degree Celsius. It's about the time that kids are rushing to school in their little puffer jackets and their mittens. Adults are commuting to work. And in this quiet alleyway in Ansan City is Cho smoking a cigarette. Now, if you pass by him, you might think maybe he's waiting for someone. It is way too cold to be standing in this windy alleyway smoking a cigarette. It's not even enjoyable. But he's waiting. And he waits until he sees a little girl that is named Nayoung. So Nayoung is not actually her real name. Her identity is very well protected by the South Korean government, and no one's trying to figure out who she is. So she's Nayoung. She's a third grader, probably around 3.5 feet tall, very tiny, walking to school. And she's walking quickly because it's cold. He steps in front of her and he says, "Do you go to this church?" Behind him in the alleyway, there's this small church, and it's not like a normal church building. It's one of those black brick buildings. It looks more like an office building that's been rented and converted into a church, like the type that you would see in major cities. She responds, "No," steps to the side to walk around the man, but he grabs her tiny little arm and says, "You should go to church."
Let me go.
He starts dragging her into this quiet black building. It's completely empty. It's a school day. Nobody who worked at the church had even gotten there yet. It was left unlocked so that worshipers could come in at any time and pray. Without hesitation, Cho drags her up to the second floor bathroom. It is a single toilet private bathroom. There are no stalls. There's no heater turned on. There's this orange-brown tile on the ground that's ice cold. He throws her into the bathroom and shuts the door behind him.
Oh, no.
He forces her to sit on the toilet and tries to essay her by forcing her to perform orally. He pulls down his pants, but Nayoung refuses, and this really angers Cho. He starts leaning down and starts assaulting her tiny little face with his mouth. He starts biting her cheeks in anger, and he's not biting. He's genuinely trying to shred off her cheek fat with his teeth. He tears off enough skin to get to the fatty tissue below the skin. Her face will be scarred.
You telling me that same Mr. C dude that got his head nearly chopped off by that 20-year-old, he SA'd an 8-year-old? And not only that he SA'd her, he SA'd her so badly that she's permanently disabled. And not only that, he lives not even a whole mile away from her. Like, he can literally walk to her crib and do it again if he wanted to. Like, that is how close he is. Why? And then at this point then this is justice, I guess. Now I can see why this is justice, because there's no way You was 70-year-old, well, 12 years before that, so you're probably like in your late 50s, something like that. Messing with an 8-year-old, like an 8-year-old, second grade girl. Permanently disabling her. Permanently. Like, she ain't gonna be normal again. You messed her up that bad. Manipulated her against her own will. And you only live you only live half a mile away from her. How is you still living a good life like that? Like, you put that man in for like 20, 30 years. Put him in a death sentence at this point, because you ruined ruined a little girl's life. And you ruined your own life doing that. So why is he only... Okay.
Not all the way down to the muscle, but it was really bad and it was very bloody. Nayoung feels the pain of this and she starts screaming for help, and Cho screams at her to shut up and slaps her across the face. But when that doesn't work, he puts his giant hands around her tiny neck and strangles her until she's unconscious.
Oh my God.
And then he unclothes her and violently assaults her from the front and behind.
Oh my God.
He was so violent that her large intestines were pulled out and were hanging completely out of her body. There were at one point rumors that a plunger was used on her private parts in order to inflict this level of damage, but it was later stated that no, it was just the sheer brutality of the assault that caused the injuries. She was completely disemboweled. When he was done, you know, with the bathroom sink, there's a pipe that goes to the wall, and that's where the water comes out of. He disconnected that pipe, so when he turned on the faucet, the water was now just spilling out onto the ground. And it was just splashing on top of 8-year-old Nayoung. It was ice cold water. This was his attempt to get rid of his DNA. And then he left that little 8-year-old girl, unclothed, dying, disemboweled on the cold church bathroom floor. He walked back home. He didn't say a word to his wife. He's married. He went into his room, changed his clothes, threw himself onto his warm, comfortable bed, and he started snoring. He fell asleep in peace, knowing that he would wake up in the comfort of his own bed. While Nayoung, she only had a 10% chance of waking up ever again. She would wake up briefly from the cold water splashing on her back. I mean, the water was so cold, it would have been numbing on her skin. And when she looked up, her attacker is gone. I don't know if she could see the extent of her own injuries, if that would register in an 8-year-old's brain. I don't know. But she mustered up all the strength that she had left and started crawling out of that church bathroom. We don't know how loud she could even be after being violently strangled, but she tried her best to call for help. She was out the door and into the hallway with this trail of blood just behind her when a church worker sees her and they start screaming for help. Paramedics rush to the church. They rush baby Nayoung to the hospital, and it was one of the worst case situations possible. Nayoung was now losing consciousness. Her large intestines was dying. So when your organs are exposed to the harsh environment outside of your body, the cells start to die. When this happens, doctors have to amputate and remove the dying organ so that they can try to contain that damage. But that's not the only problem that they're dealing with. There's so many variables. They don't know how long Nayoung was without oxygen to the brain. She had severe damage to 80% of her private parts. She had severe damage to her internal organs. Doctors had to make sure that her small intestines were still intact, because you can live without your large intestines. You cannot live without your small intestines. Your large intestines are mainly there for water and electrolyte absorption to harden your stool. But your small intestines, that's where you absorb the nutrients for your food. The doctors didn't know if Nayoung's small intestines were also damaged and how badly and to what extent. Additionally, she had several broken bones. She would need life-saving emergency surgery, and the chance of survival, 10%. She would be in that emergency surgery for 8 hours. The surgeon would have to cut open her abdomen, a long cut through her chest all the way down to her belly button so that they could operate on all of her internal organs. She was bleeding internally. They had to amputate around 70% of her intestines. The surgery itself is physically traumatic, just adding more injuries onto little Nayoung's body. Nayoung's parents rushed to the hospital and they just held on to that 10% chance the whole time that she's being operated on, because all they need is that 10%. After 8 hours of surgery, Nayoung woke up, and instead of being in the comfort of her own bed like Cho was, she was on the hard hospital bed with machines beeping all around her and a handful of police officers staring down at her. They wanted her to give her statement. The first thing 8-year-old Nayoung did after waking up from life-saving surgery was tell the police everything that happened. And I'm sure every second of that was painful. An 8-year-old describing in detail all the horrific things a 57-year-old man did to her, a man older than her own father, that is not a normal conversation.
And the dude is married.
The doctor's then sitting that 8-year-old Nayoung down and telling her how her entire life is going to change and how her body no longer works the way it used to because of this man. That is not a normal conversation. Nayoung was too young to even spell the names of the surgeries that she received. Nayoung's doctors had to amputate a good amount of her large intestines. They had to connect her small intestines to her rectum in hopes that her small intestines would slowly learn to take on the role of her large intestines. And because most of her large intestines were now gone, she would have a stoma. A stoma is a hole in your stomach that doctors create that allow waste, urine, and feces to exit your body through your stomach. So instead of sitting down using a toilet to use the restroom, you would have the stomach opening and it would be connected to a bag of sorts, like a colostomy bag, and it would empty out on its own.
Oh my
There are no
God.
nerve endings in the stoma, so thankfully it shouldn't
actually
hurt.
messed
But,
her up so bad,
you know,
bro.
in that same vein, there are no sphincter muscles at the end of a stoma, like you would have in the rectum. So something that a lot of us might take for granted is, you know, when you go out with friends and you're having lunch with them, we can kind of hold our need to use the restroom, or we can kind of time it so when we get home, that's when we will use it, right? When you have a stoma, there's no warning. There's no way to control it. The waste will just exit the stoma whether you like it or not.
What?
Side note, I know that the upside of all of this, the hope that we're holding on to is that, yes, she's alive, right? This is very bad, but at least she's alive.
Yeah,
but it's
like,
not,
her
oh,
life
she's
is-
saved now, just one surgery and she's good to go.
No, she's
No,
not. Her life
she
is
would
done.
need months of intensive treatment to just heal from the surgery, let alone the physical injuries that were inflicted on her by this man.
God, oh my God,
On top of that, she would have to learn how to deal with this completely new life. Patients with a stoma, they need to learn to time meals. They need to learn how to chew food because for most people, chewing food, when you're in a rush, okay, you chew a little bit less. For people with a stoma, that could mean the difference between a week of pain and being hospitalized versus having a good bowel movement. Because of the damage done to Nayoung's private parts, she was not allowed to sit for more than 10 to 15 minutes at a time. She had to eat less often. She could not snack anymore. She couldn't drink soda or eat her favorite foods. I mean, she was just in excruciating, unrelenting pain every second of that journey. And every second of this physical healing journey would be unrelenting
God.
pain, like excruciating pain. So while she's in that hospital bed trying to recover, the police show up with 9 pictures. Each of them were of an old, scary looking man. They ask her, which one was the man who attacked you? And she confidently points to one of the pictures and she's like, that's him. That's the man who hurt me. I know this for certain. Because of this, Nayoung's Cho Do-sun would be arrested on December 13th, 2008, 2 days after the brutal attack. In Korea, one of the first things that kids are taught, and it's kind of random, but it's posture. Have good posture. It's fascinating. Even in elementary schools, you probably won't see teachers in the US correcting students' posture or even disciplining them based on their posture. But in South Korea, very common. Sitting tall with your back straight is not even just considered good for your spine. It's also considered respectful. Slouching in front of elders, it's interpreted as you don't respect them enough to be at full attention.
That's a lot of people.
In school, your posture can determine if teachers see you as a well-behaved, studious, credible kid or not.
I
And this
slouch in my
man's
chair, but,
voice
like,
was
it's
very
outside
stern.
on my back
Sit up,
hurt.
straighten your back.
That's it.
Nayoung fumbled with her colostomy bag, the bag that catches all her waste and is attached to her stoma on her stomach. The hospital didn't have ones for children, so she had to use an adult-sized colostomy bag. It was hanging, peeking out from under her shirt, and it came all the way down to her knees. Because again, this bag was made for adults. It was way too big for her. She fumbled with her bag and she's wincing as she's trying to sit up straighter. Technically, she's not even supposed to be sitting for too long. Doctor said maybe just 10-15 minutes and then she has to get up. The prosecutors waited until they were happy with her posture to continue. The prosecutors.
This is a court?
This is in the prosecutor's office before the trial.
Dude.
What?
Nayoung had given her full statement to the police the minute that she woke up from life-saving surgery. But the prosecutors, they wanted her to come in and tell them one more time so that they could record it and they could play that recording in the trial. So she had to start all the way from the beginning in this very scary office with her colostomy bag. She's not allowed to sit for more than 10-15 minutes. And the prosecutor is disciplining her on her posture.
That is crazy.
She had to start from the beginning and recount every single detail that she could remember, even the most traumatic parts. Each time, it would take 30 minutes for her to tell the full story. He told me to be quiet in the bathroom, he slapped my face, and then he strangled me. By the end of her story, she would be trembling, shaken up, and re-traumatized, and the prosecutor would correct her posture once more, and then when she was done, he looked down at his recorder. Oh, shoot. I forgot to hit the record button. Okay, let's do it one more time from the top. He told me to be quiet in the bathroom, slapped my face, and then strangled me. Damn it, what is wrong with this tape recorder? Okay, let's go back from the top and don't skip any details this time around too. And sit up straight.
There's no way.
This would be the third time. He told me to be quiet in the bathroom, slapped my face, and then strangled me. Oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. The recording still didn't work. Okay, again, from the beginning, don't forget a single thing. The kidnapping, assault, what he looked like, nothing. Keep in all the details. He told me to be quiet in the bathroom, slapped my face, and then strangled me. Nayoung would have to recite exactly what happened to her 4 times in a row. Sitting on a hard chair when her doctors advised her to not sit more than 10 minutes at a time, fumbling with her colostomy bag, re-traumatizing herself, bringing her back to the day of the attack over and over and over again with her own words, while the prosecutor is yelling at her, 똑바로 앉으라고, 허리 펴고, which means sit up straight, straighten your back.
Who cares?
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Bro,
But at least it's over, right? So far, she would have told the police right when she woke up from surgery, and then she just told the prosecutor 4 times what happened to her. So 5 times total, and at least she's done, right? She never has to say it again, right? During the actual trial, the police were in charge of bringing her audio recording to the courthouse so that they could play it for the judge, right? Mm-hmm. They did not bring it on time. I don't know if they were stuck in traffic. I don't know if they were late. I don't know if they forgot. Who knows? So the prosecutor forced Nayoung to testify.
Bro,
she would have to dramatically share her story for the 6th time. In her own words, she would be forced to sit there with sanitary pads that would be smeared by blood by the end of her testimony because many of her organs were still bleeding. Thankfully, she wasn't forced to be in the same exact room as her attacker Cho, but she could see him and they could see her. She was placed in a second room in the courthouse, and on the wall there were 2 TV screens. One showed the judge, and another showed the defendant, Cho, in real time. Nayoung would have to stare at him while she recited all the details of what he did to her, and then in the courtroom there would be a TV broadcasting Nayoung in real time for the judge, the lawyers, the audience, for all of them to watch. That evening, Nayoung went home to write in her diary. Today, a car took me to Seoul for the trial of the man who hurt me. There were 2 TVs in front of me, one with the judge. On the other, I could see the bad man. And all of a sudden, I was very scared. The psychopathy checklist is a 20-item scale to essentially see how psychopathic someone is. It's a bit of a controversial way of testing someone's psychopathy, but it's used frequently in South Korea. There's 2 main factors. Factor 1 is determining emotional detachment of the subject. So do they have superficial charm? Are they manipulative? Do they have an absence of guilt or empathy? Then you have factor 2, a measure of antisocial behavior. Are they aggressive, impulsive, irresponsible? There's proneness to boredom. Psychopaths tend to have a low frustration tolerance. Do they live parasitic lifestyles where they leech off of people? The test itself is said to be very intense. In Korea, it is not a multiple choice online test where you have the little bubbles where it's like, do you strongly agree, strongly disagree with this? The psychopath test used by Korean researchers asks inmates to write essays in response to questions, and their responses are analyzed by a panel of psychiatrists to just carefully see what kind of traits they have. An average civilian typically scores around 5 to 6. That range is completely normal. And anything above 25 to 30 is psychopathic. Most inmates in South Korea have an average of 16.4 on the scale. For example, you know the case we recently talked about of the Korean woman who killed a stranger, dismembered her, and tried to dispose of her body in a suitcase because she wanted to experience what it felt like?
Yes. True crime.
Yes.
Fan.
She scored a 28.
Oh my goodness.
Cho scored a 29.
That's it. I feel
And his wife was going to stay with him, knowing that, knowing what he did. She stayed with him after his arrest, even finding out the crime that he was accused of doing, which he did. She tried to vouch for him even after his arrest. She told the judge saying that he wasn't, when he wasn't drunk, he was really kind. She said he always did the dishes. He made rice. Sometimes he would make panchan, side dishes. He did laundry. He would help clean. And he was very polite. She said, my husband has never been angry. He is praised for being a polite person. I mean, aside from drinking and wandering around, my heart and my family life were truly peaceful. But that's really all she could say about him. Even if there was someone in Cho's life that knew him well, they did not want to stand up for him. And I'm sure, a lot of it has to do with the fact that why would they stand up for someone that's accused of assaulting an 8-year-old? But also, they genuinely had nothing good to say about this guy. He doesn't know how to keep a job. He has zero work ethic. He's not a great, happy, welcoming person. He used his wife to pay bills. I mean, with that, how do you try to do a character witness for anyone without perjuring yourself? All you could really do is go up on the stand and say, Your Honor, he existed. Like, that is the most neutral statement that you could make without lying.
Legit only reason. Alright, well, that's the story of Korea's Most Hated Man. What the hell? That's gonna do our video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. I don't even know what to say. Look at my eyes. I'm disgusted right now. Holy God, yeah. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Hope y'all this video. And how y'all feel about this? Even though we all should feel the same, right? Yeah. Anyways, I'll see y'all next time. I'll come out with a Bears post-game reaction on Sunday. Yeah, I haven't been able to make prediction videos lately because I've been busy, but it's cool. I'll come out with the Bears post game after the Bears Cardinals game.